Right. So last time we discussed medieval age, or in other words, we can call the Anglo-Norman period. Today, the topic of our discussion is Age of Chaucer. So basically, Age of Chaucer starts with the birth of Chaucer in 1340, and it ends with the death of Chaucer himself in 1400. Exactly. So this era is generally this era has a lot of importance in terms of literature, because this era is known to be the real birth of English literature or English poetry. That is why Chaucer is tagged with the tag of the father of English literature or the father of English poetry. So in this era, we can see that at huge level, this was like growth of nationalism. English people turn out to be a nation, and like this is a kind of era of transition at in one sense. But on the other side, if we see that there much was happening in this era, from the Black Death in 1348, famine, it was followed by famine, social unrest was there, constitutional conflicts were there, religious turmoils and riots were there, the fights between different religious sects were at the top, such as just after the translation of Bible. So these were some of the very important things were going on. But at the same time, war of 100 years was also being fought between England and France. The War of 100 Years started in 1338 and it ended in 1453. But right after 2 years, in 1455, one another huge or turmoilic or destructive war started, which changed a lot of things, or a lot of which created a lot different scenario in England. The war was which started in 1455, was the War of Roses. This war was between the two families, or the two houses, the House of Lancaster and House of York. They both were fighting the war for the sake of throne. They wanted to sit on the throne of England. So Chaucer is said to be the only, or maybe one of the few, who lived uh, under, or lived in the age of three kings, like Edward III, Richard II, and Henry IV. When he got birth, it was Edward III, and then Richard II came, and then again Henry IV. So these changing monarchies, or changing of the rulers, brought a lot of chaos in England. So these were the some general socio-political and religious conditions of the era. But now, if we look a thorough, if we go through some literary perspective, that Chaucer, in a real sense, started English poetry, and he is called the father of English poetry. So Chaucer wrote in French, he wrote in Latin, he also wrote in English. So he wrote in three different languages. But it is generally known or said that Chaucer, before Chaucer, English language was only a dialect, but it was Chaucer who converted that dialect into a complete language. So that's very great thing about Chaucer. Right. So Chaucer, used Ottawa Rima in his work, The Book of Duchess. Ottawa Rima is what? What is Ottawa Rima? That's very important thing. Ottawa Rima is 8 line stanza, usually written in, not usually, but always written in iambic pentameter. So iambic pentameter is what? 5 feet of iamb meter. Like iamb is what? First syllable is unstressed and the next one is stressed. So unstressed is followed by stressed. This is 1 foot. I mean, 5 feet are made together in a single line in 10 syllable. Each line will be of 10 syllables. So that was Ottawa Rima. And then in his work, the Canterbury Tales, he used 7 line stanza, which was his own creation, his own, uh, he used 7 line stanza for the first time, and that too he wrote in heroic couplet. So the father of heroic couplet is Chaucer. Heroic couplet was introduced by Chaucer. So what is heroic couplet? The question arises here: two rhyming lines having 10 syllables in each. So that's what heroic couplet it is. So he used 7 line stanza with heroic couplet in that work, very masterpiece work, Canterbury Tales. So that 7 line stanza is A B B C C, A B A B B C C. So that's 7 line stanza. And then Chaucer is generally known as the poet of court. He is the poet of upper age or refined class. It is said, or generally, different critics are of the view that Chaucer did not write anything for the lower, class or the middle class. He usually wrote about the upper class. That's what we say, that his readers are from refined community or they are very educated. So Chaucer is generally known as first national poet of England, or poet of court, poet of the rich people or the refined people. These are what the some of the titles he has been tagged with. On the other hand, William Langland is known to be the poet of people. So Chaucer is known to be the poet of court, and William Langland, his contemporary, is known as poet of people. So he belonged to poor family, like lower middle class, and then grew up there. He saw, or he experienced all the things whatever uh, the poor class was going through. So he wrote about the poor class. So P.S. Plowman is one of the very masterpiece work of that William Langland, in which so the difference between William Langland and Chaucer is quite obvious. Chaucer criticized only one character or one person. If you just look at the characters of Canterbury Tales, you will find that he criticized Priores, or he criticized the wife of Bath, he criticized Franklin, or he did not criticize the whole institution, but he rather criticized only a single character, and that is what it is said, that he used irony in his tone or in his works. But on the other hand, Langland used satire that was bit vitriolic, or satirical tone that you can find, that he did not choose only single character to be criticized or to bring it under the umbrella of criticism, but he used the whole what the whole department or institution. He brought the whole institution, such as he did not criticize any single person in terms of religion. He criticized church and the corruption of church. So that's not exactly what done by Chaucer. So this is what the difference between Chaucer and Langland. So Chaucer is said to be that he used Horatian satire, which is very light in tone and very witty in tone. But on the other hand, or on the contrary, Langland used what Manichean satire, or one another type that you can have the type in the types of satire. So he used Manichean satire. That is little harsh or vitriolic tone, though you can find it, and he used satire rather than using irony in his work. So irony basically is you know is literary device, and satire is literary text, we can say it, literary genre properly. So that was what it is. And then one another poet of his era was Gower, and Gower wrote Vox Clementus and Confessio Amantus. Yes, indeed. So apart from that, in some prose writers or prose, you know, what things that we have come to learn from this whole age, the age of Chaucer, is what William Langland, Chaucer, they were not satisfied with the conditions of church or religion. They were not satisfied at all. But that was the same case with John Wycliffe. John Wycliffe translated Bible for the very first time in English language. So religious conditions were not very fine at that time. Martin Luther wrote 95 theses, and he said to be that he started reformation. And with that reformation was started for the sake of bringing reforms and changes in church. So it was against the corruption in church. So resultantly, there was only one sect before the inception of Reformation, that was Roman Catholicism. And then with the inception of Reformation, there came another sect, that was Anglican Church, or Protestants were born with Reformation. So everything was corrupt before Bible was translated. When Bible came, so the knowledge became the access for each and everybody, whether rich or poor. There was no discrimination in terms of knowledge and all that. With the prose writer John Wycliffe, those who followed John Wycliffe later, they are called Lollards. So Lollards were the followers of John Wycliffe. Lollard movement was again with the same thing, for the sake of purification of church or purification of religion. Right. So then one another figure in terms of prose, that was John Mandeville, and John Mandeville wrote only about travels. So this is